Quick disclaimer before we start this episode, because we are heading to Mongolia, they have some pretty out there cuisine. We're going to be talking about some weird things, innards from different sort of meat products. So if you're a bit squeamish, this might not be the right episode for you. You have been warned. Welcome to The Dish, the culinary travel podcast focusing on the stories behind world-famous foods.
We are your hosts, Tomo and Megzi from foodfuntravel.com. Join us for tasty histories, destination food guides, and more.
In this episode, we explore what dishes to eat in Outer Mongolia.
We discuss how Mongolian food is based on red food and white food. We find out what it is and why.
Plus, is Mongolia's most famous dish actually from Mongolia at all? Okay, welcome to another episode of The Dish, everybody.
I hope you're all hungry, but if you are, you might be a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, in this episode, we're talking about what to eat in Mongolia, and it is a surprisingly unusual set of foods.
Yeah.
Maybe not things you're expecting, and it's pretty crazy.
It's one of the only countries I've visited that I actively lost weight in, just because I didn't find the food all that great, and I avoided it at all costs. But we thought it would be something that people would be really interested in hearing about. It's a really unique culture. You know, there's a lot of stuff there that you wouldn't know about Mongolian food and the Mongolian diet, so we thought we'd do an episode on it because, I don't know, I thought some people might be interested to find out.
I mean, I remember there were a few dishes that I definitely didn't hate. There was some stuff that's actually fine.
Yeah, so the main issue is that I'm not a big fan of lamb. And as you're going to learn as we continue on in this episode, Mongolian diet is mutton.
Yeah. Lamb, goat, camel. Lots of that going on.
Yeah. So not my favorite thing. So yeah, that's why I lost weight. But yeah, there's some things that they did all right, and we're going to have a little bit of a chat about it today. So let's just talk a little bit about the Mongolian diet to begin with, just so you get a little bit of a background about what sort of things that they actually do eat and why they eat it and all that sort of stuff.
All right.
So it's probably no surprise that as we just said, the Mongolian diet consists largely of animals and animal fat. In fact, Mongolians actually refer to their diet as either being white or red. So white refers to the large amounts of dairy that they consume, and red is, of course, the meat. Meat is what they have. So they just have a red or white diet. Their fatty, meaty diet is actually one that is necessary for them because they have to withstand these really crazy cold winters, and they're out there working on the steeps, and it's really cold. Temperatures drop as low as 40 degrees Celsius, which is apparently also negative 40 degrees.
Yeah, definitely. 40 would be a very warm winter.
Oh, it's so hot this winter. Negative 40 degrees Celsius, which is also negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. I looked it up. I don't know how it works, but that is what it is.
It's because one scale moves quicker than the other, so they have to converge at some point.
That's where it happens.
That's where it happens, in Mongolia.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of the outdoor work that they do in these stupidly cold temperatures, uses up a lot of energy reserves, and so they have a lot of animal fat to keep them going. You might also be really interested to know that Mongolians don't eat with chopsticks like their Chinese neighbors do. They usually use a spoon, fork, knife as we do, or just their hands. Using their hands is actually quite a common thing.
We definitely used our hands quite a lot.
We did, yeah. So today, food in Mongolia, it does maintain a lot of links to the country's nomadic traditions, and also now has influences from Russia, China, and other Central Asian countries. So there's a lot of influence that's come in, like wafer biscuits. There's wafer biscuits everywhere now. And even just the introduction of bread came from outside. The staples of the Mongolian diet are, as we said before, boiled mutton. They do Tibetan-style dumplings, which we'll discuss more, and tea, which they mix with sheep, cow, camel, or horse milk, which we are also going to get a little bit deeper into later on in the episode. Tasty so far? So yeah, as you can imagine from what I've told you with a lot of their food being so fatty, and I can tell you from personal experience, it is quite heavy, greasy, fatty food. They actually say that the mutton in particular is so fatty that it gives off a nauseating smell that penetrates everything, even the money.
I mean, that sounds appetizing, doesn't it?
But I was thinking, when I read this, I was thinking back to it, and I was like, the money does smell weird. And it does feel like a little greasy, because they're always like handling it after they've eaten stuff and whatnot. I don't know. I was like, actually...
Meaty money.
Meaty money. Meaty muttony money.
I don't remember that personally, but my aversion to lamb and mutton is much less than yours, so
That's
perhaps
true.
I just wasn't paying attention.
Yeah. You might have noticed that I haven't mentioned anything about fruit and vegetables. So obviously, previously in Mongolia, vegetables and fruits were in very relatively short supply, being negative 40 degrees in the winter. You ain't growing too much. But as more people are being influenced by outside foods, this is becoming more sought after by younger Mongolians. But there is actually a saying in Mongolia that says, meat is for men and grass is for animals.
That's a good one.
Yep.
But, wheat's a grass, and they seem to like eating bread, so...
Yeah, but I don't think they're into like leafy vegetables and stuff like that. And actually, apparently you'll find some Mongols still today refuse to eat vegetables for health reasons. I don't know what story they've been told about vegetables, or they had like some rancid ones or something, but for health reasons, they choose to not eat vegetables.
Well, this would be a good case study because they seem to survive through the winter somehow, eating mainly just meat and dairy.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we don't need fruit and vegetables after all. Maybe we've been sold a lie.
No, they actually have this because they eat so much fatty foods. They have this particular problem that happens with their thyroid in their neck, and it bulges out and can become cancerous. So no. No.
Oh, all right. Maybe not then.
No, it's not good. Yeah. So in the summer months, milk products rule. In the winter, meats rule, but they actually have a dried meat that is their staple food. And I discovered this meat, and we were there in the summer months, but we probably actually tried this a lot in the soups that we had, and we didn't even realize it. It's called Buuz, and it is a dried meat product, and it's something that I'm going to explain a little bit later on in the episode when we get into like the certain foods that people eat. But I was really surprised. I was like, oh, there's a dried meat that they do, and oh, it's in a lot of, I probably ate this. Yeah. In addition to the dried meats and the regular meats they eat in the summer, it is also something we should point out that all the parts of the sheep are always consumed.
Yeah, they don't waste.
No.
Of course.
So this includes the heart, the intestines, the kidneys, the eyeballs, the brains, the head, the tail. They're all eaten.
Yep. Hey, I mean, like in Western culture, we're eating a lot of that just without realizing it in burgers or something. Sausages. We just don't know that we're eating it, probably. Yeah,
that's true. But one thing, unlike here, where we try and hide it away, there in Mongolia, the sheep's head is regarded as a delicacy, and the parts of the head you get to eat are in order of like the pecking order of the household. So guests share the best part of the meat along with the seniors, and the juniors get all the bits that they don't want. So, but the eyeball is quite sought after.
I thought the eyeball went to the head of the family, the oldest person, oldest male on the table.
Yeah, so you might think that would be left to the juniors, but nope. Head of the table gets those eyeballs.
Isn't there a thing where it's like every single organ goes to a different person specifically?
That's what I thought. I tried to find this, but I couldn't find any because we had read this previously or heard it while we were there in Mongolia. I did try to find reference to this, and I couldn't find which bits go where.
Yeah,
they were pretty much just glossing over, going, the best bits go to the seniors, and the not best bits go to everybody else.
Yeah, maybe they've got a bit more democratic about the situation these days than traditionally.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, come on, we can all try different bits. We don't have to just eat the spleen.
It certainly was not like that when we were there, but that was a few years ago now. And if you're wondering, this feast is often known as the Five Fingers Feast, and it's called this because everybody gets in there and eats it with their hands. And it is actually quite an honor to be invited to this meal, and it's something that people do seek out while they're there to try and get this experience.
Let's clarify. The Five Fingers Feast is a full boiled carcass.
Yeah, so not just the head. So the head is there. The head is there. But it's like, it is the full kit and caboodle, the whole...
No kittens. Definitely no kittens or poodles.
Because
kittens and poodles. If anyone misunderstanding your accent would think you said kitten and poodle.
The whole kitten and poodle.
They don't cook kittens and poodles. Is definitely going to be like a whole lamb, mutton, goat, or something else of that size that they can fit in a pot.
Yeah.
Chopped into pieces, all thrown in, boiled up with salt. That is it.
That's it. That's all you get.
Yeah, they put it all out in the middle of the table. Everyone sits around and takes different bits. And yeah, if you start taking the bits that grandfather wants, you're going to be in a lot of trouble.
You'll be out in the cold.
Yep.
In the negative 40-degree cold.
And you don't last long in the negative 40 cold.
No,
so you don't take the wrong bits.
But there are a couple of other rules that you should know if you are at a family gathering of Mongolians. One of the main things that you should know if visiting a ger or a local Mongolian home is that visitors are expected to take at least one small piece or a sip of whatever is offered to them, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it is considered exceptionally rude.
You can't say no. And let's clarify, the ger is the equivalent of a yurt. You probably heard of a yurt. They have them at like festivals in Europe these days.
Now they're a hip festival thing that Gwyneth Paltrow sleeps in.
Yeah, a ger is just the Mongolian name for exactly the same sort of thing, and that's what they will deconstruct and carry around to different pastures depending on the season, then reconstruct and live in it. So yeah, massive Mongolian tent that you can have the whole family, like 20 people living in.
Exactly. And if you're in that ger and someone offers you something, it is very rude if you turn it down, so you just take it and eat it no matter what it is. You can take a small piece.
Yeah, but you just have to accept something and eat it, consume it in some way.
At the same time, it's also good to know that you shouldn't just eat absolutely everything in sight, especially I think in Western culture, we can sort of eat everything that's on our plate, and in order to be like, I ate that really quick, it was so good, and now it's all gone. Yeah. Where we're like, yeah, I just got that done and out of the way as quickly as I possibly could to not be offensive. They will see an empty bowl or an empty plate as an invitation for more, no matter what it is. So if you don't want more on your plate, always make sure that you leave a little bit behind, and they should just get the idea of, oh, they're full, so they couldn't eat it all. But if you eat it all and it's all gone, you're going to get some more of whatever that nasty is they're serving up.
I got to clarify that not everything is nasty. If you like lamb, some of the food is fine. Really it is.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm a bit...
I'm being incredibly harsh on Mongolian culture just because you don't like lamb.
I know. So yeah, Tom ate quite well there. He was quite happy to eat everything I didn't want to eat.
I mean, I did want vegetables a lot after a month of being in Mongolia. I was like, why have we only had pickled cucumbers and a couple of potatoes? And everything else has been pretty much meat and bread and dairy. We were eating
pickled cucumbers from a jar. And that was our vegetable in some of the places, which is insane. So anyway, that's a little bit of an insight into just Mongolian food, and culture, and, a little bit of background so you understand. And now we can dive into more of what exact dishes you can expect to have if you do happen to visit Mongolia. So starting off with the dish that is probably known worldwide, and I'm sure everyone's waiting to hear about this, Mongolian barbecue, which is also what some of you might have heard of as Mongolian beef. Surprise, surprise, surprise! You will actually not find this Mongolian barbecue feast in many places in Mongolia. It is actually completely not a Mongolian dish, so I don't know how many people actually know this, but
seemingly outside of Mongolia, like in other countries like the US and Australia, this is one of the few dishes that is called Mongolian.
Exactly.
Something. So it makes it sound like it's Mongolian, but it's not, right?
It's not at all. It is Mongolian barbecue is a stir-fried dish that was developed by a guy called Wu Zhaonan. And of course, as we know it is meats and vegetables that are cooked on a large, round, solid iron griddle in a really hot temperature. And they kind of cook it all up really hot, and then they slap it into your bowl, and then you get to eat it nice and fresh. And that's what we know as Mongolian beef, Mongolian barbecue. But it was invented by a Chinese guy, as I said, Wu Zhaonan, and he invented it when he was living in Taiwan. So Wu was actually a native of Beijing. He fled to Taiwan because of the outbreak of the Chinese Civil War, and that was about 1945 to 1949. So it didn't actually say when he left China, but it was pretty much, things were going down in China, and he's like, bye.
Was he from Mongolia?
Nope.
Not at all.
Nope.
Just Chinese.
Nope, just Chinese. So he went and he settled in Taiwan, and he decided to open up a street food stall in 1951. And he actually originally wanted to call the dish Beijing barbecue. That's what he wanted to, like, as a homage to where he came from and where he grew up. But because of political sensitivity to the city of Beijing, which had just recently been designated as the capital of communist China, it doesn't go down so well with the rest of the world at that time.
Taiwan's not particularly on good terms with China at that point, so they're not going to be happy.
So he settled with Mongolian barbecue instead, even though it had absolutely no connection to Mongolia. He just thought it sounded good.
It sort of does.
It does sound good. Beijing barbecue sounds pretty good too.
Yeah.
The Mongolian barbecue, and it stuck, and that's what everybody knows, and it actually became really popular going all around the world. I've had Mongolian barbecue in Australia. Definitely. I definitely know they have it in America and other places. But his actual stall was later destroyed by flooding caused by a typhoon, in which he actually almost drowned in. It's a really bad typhoon. Completely destroyed his stall, and he was like, well, decided not to rebuild. Left the restaurant business, and then developed a highly successful career as a comedian.
And then, obviously, someone stole his idea for the food, and that was that.
Well, by then, it had already become so popular in other areas, like it had grown, and people had taken the idea and taken it. So he didn't own, like, the rights to it or anything like that. He was just the first guy to do it. People who came through Taiwan saw it, thought it was cool, took it to other countries, and went, yep, we're going to rip this dude off, and yeah. But he is still credited as being the guy that actually created it. But once again, not Mongolian in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. All right, so we had to get that out of the way. Mongolian beef, Mongolian barbecue, whatever you've had that has like Mongolian in the beginning of it, because there's actually no Mongolian food that starts with Mongolian blah, blah, blah.
That we've ever heard of. No.
Then it's not from Mongolia. Generally, people say that if it has Mongolia in the beginning of it, it just kind of gives the allure of being exotic.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mongolia is very exotic, even though when you go there, it's actually not exotic in the sort of East Asian sense. It's unknown. Yeah, exotic's the wrong word. Yeah. It's like, what is Mongolian stuff? Which is sort of what we thought it would be interesting to do this episode, because we're like, well, I bet no one really knows what Mongolian food is, and they probably have just had Mongolian barbecue and not a lot else.
Exactly. So hopefully we haven't completely disappointed you all by hearing that you're not going to get that in Mongolia. You might in Ulaanbaatar now.
Maybe. That would be so weird that they've taken a Taiwanese dish, taken it back to Ulaanbaatar and been like, yeah, sure, it's our food.
Yeah, you never know.
Here's the authentic, real Mongolian barbecue.
But okay, let's talk about the food that you actually can eat in Mongolia. Now, the first one I'm going to talk about is something that I did actually thoroughly enjoy, because I'm a dumpling fiend. What can I say? I love me dumplings. And this dish is called Buuz, which is actually spelt B-U-U-Z.
Buuz.
Buuz. And it could almost probably be called the national dish of Mongolia. It's really that popular.
It's definitely one of the national dishes.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be one of them, if not the. So Buuz is a type of Mongolian steamed dumpling, which is filled with minced mutton, or you can have beef if you're lucky. And they flavor it with onion and or garlic, and it's all just salted. The whole mixture is salted. Occasionally they're flavored with sprouted fennel seeds and other seasonal herbs, and sometimes you can get some mashed potato, cabbage, or rice, which could be added as well. Pretty much the only ones we tried were meat and maybe some rice, but it was mostly just meat. We didn't have any of this fennel seeds or anything fancy like that.
I don't know where people are eating ones that fancy.
No, it's very fancy.
That's got to be Ulaanbaatar only, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Like, you go out of the city and everything is pretty basic.
Yeah. So Buuz is obviously not a Mongolian invention. It's the version of steamed dumplings that you will find in China known as baozi, which is the Mandarin word for steamed dumpling.
Easy.
Easy. They are eaten in massive quantities throughout the year, but especially during the Mongolian New Year's celebration, which falls in February, is when they do their New Year's celebration, and they love eating some Buuz. During this time, Buuz are prepared, like in the lead up to the celebration. They're prepared weeks before the event, and then, because there's so many of them, where do they keep them?
Underneath the bed?
Nope, they just put them outside and let them freeze.
Of course, natural freezer.
Natural freezer. And then, yeah, they're consumed, usually accompanied by Mongolian tea or a nice chaser of vodka.
Why not? Meat and vodka.
Meat and vodka.
That's
dumplings and vodka. Meaty dumplings and vodka.
If it's a freezing cold night, that's what you want.
Yeah. So we really enjoyed Buuz. It's definitely something that pretty much any little roadside food stop or restaurant, cafe, whatever you come across on your travels, they're going to probably be selling some Buuz. But you have to wait for it. It usually is, I mean, unless it's February, which you probably don't want to be in Mongolia then, and they've got some sitting outside frozen, it is a dish that's usually made fresh. So you got to sit there and wait. If you are starving, the anticipation is terrible. It will kill you.
I found when we had road stops through Mongolia, I mean, you're traveling off-road, these places might get a few customers every couple of hours. So they didn't have anything ready, like hardly ever. So most of the food, you had to wait half an hour if you wanted them to cook something. There was a few dishes, maybe we'll be talking about them later in the episode, that were fast food, but almost everything else, you'll be sitting around waiting for them to make it from scratch.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, the next dish that we are talking about is something that is a little bit more of the fast food side, which is the hushur, which hushur. It's spelled Khushur.
Easy. Basic, simple word.
Hushur. So this is very, very similar to the Buuz, but it is a meat pastry that's also relatively similar to the Russian chibureki. Apparently, if anyone has tried chibureki.
Well, they got chibureki here in Georgia. It's just a deep-fried pastry filled with meat.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and I mean, it's sort of, some would say maybe it's related to burek as well. The word's sort of similar. I don't know if it is.
Yeah,
but all of these different like pastry with meat in sort of dishes from the Balkans, Russia, etc., might have some common thread.
But it's not like a pastry. I found it was more like a coating. How would you explain the hushur?
It was a dough pocket.
Yeah, it was a dough pocket.
It was a single dough pocket with meat in the inside that they seal, they crimp around the outside, then they throw it in oil.
But it kind of bubbles a bit because of the oil, so it's not like a pastry. It's more like what am I trying to think of? I'm trying to think of like a scallop. That reminds me of
That's a potato.
Yeah, but like, you know how the outside goes all like sort of looks bubbly and stuff? That's what it reminded me of, but it was full of meat.
Yeah, it sort of looks a bit like that sort of thing, maybe, but it's dough. It's made with wheat, I believe.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just when it fries, it bubbles up, of course, because they throw it in hot oil, and bam, there you go. And it's so you're getting plenty of calories right there.
Oh my god, so many calories.
But they were tasty.
They were good.
Tasty
they were
snacks.
good. The innards of that are very similar to Buuz, in that the meat is prepared in like the exact same way, but it's just cooked in that fried dough pocket. And this is the one that we found could come out really quick. So we were in Mongolia around about the time of the Nadan festival, which is their, like, I mean, sort of like the Olympics of Mongolia. People come out and they compete in horse riding and archery and other different sports, wrestling, everything like that. And so it's kind of like a carnival atmosphere, and you could definitely get hushur just being cooked everywhere. It was the easy, they'd just give it to you in like a bit of like paper, and you'd go away and you'd have your quick and easy snack.
Yeah. Super fast to make, super quick to cook. So that's why.
So as I said, it's created very similar to the Buuz, where meat is often beef or mutton, but there are some areas where it can actually be made with camel.
Yep. I'm not surprised. They got some camels down in the Gobi Desert there in Mongolia. Makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm assuming I mostly ate beef or mutton, but I really couldn't tell you because it's just a fried pocket of fried doughy friedness. So I could have been eating anything.
Plus, I mean, they've got a tendency to be like, well, we've got all of this different meat left over, so we'll just mix it together.
Meat surprise.
Yeah, it's not like there's no purity going on of like we're only using mutton for this particular dish. It's like, nah, we've got meat. This is meat.
Here's your meat. It's
this
all
is a
little
thing.
Mishmash of everything we had left over. And that's what you get because it's quick, fast street food. All right, so one of the other dishes they have is, I am not going to pronounce this correctly. I am so sorry. It's gurultai shol. Gurultai shol, which is a hearty soup with meat or borts that I mentioned earlier in the episode.
The dried meat.
Yeah, and it's made with fried noodles. So it's like a fried noodle dish that has this meat in it.
In a soup.
In a soup.
I remember this. This had like a layer of oil on the top of the soup.
Oh
and lots of little fatty bits of meat in the soup.
Oh,
and little noodles.
So fatty.
I can't believe they fry the noodles before putting them in a soup. I mean, like, you can just boil the noodles at this stage.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. But I did mention that I would talk about what borts is, because I'm sure we must have had it when we had this soup. We tried not to order it too much, but because it was so fatty. It was insane. But yeah, this is the dried meat that they use in the winter, the Buuz. And the source of meat varies from region to region. So cow is the most common that they use, but in Govi, camel meat is available, and so they use that. In the mountainous north, they use reindeer, and in some areas, horse meat is also a popular option. As you just said, they use what meat's laying around, right? So what they do is they prepare it by cutting the meat into long strips. They're about 2 to 3 centimeters thick and 5 to 7. Did I say meters?
I thought you said centimeters.
Good. I was like, whoa, that's huge.
This is like a giant dish.
That's huge. No, 2 to 3 centimeters thick and 5 to 7 centimeters wide. And then the strips are hung on strings under the roof of the yurt where the air is free to circulate and dries out the meat. They leave it there for about a month, just hanging from the top of the yurt. This then, it turns into hard, small sticks, and apparently it has like a feel like wood once it's completely dried out. Yeah. And they take on like a really brown color, as you would imagine, is what dried out meat does.
It's like Mongolian jerky.
Yeah, and so they say because the drying process of the meat has shrunk the meat so much, it means that all of this meat can now very easily be stored away in the stomach of the same animal it came from. Tasty.
That's a good place to keep it.
That is that is the Mongolian refrigeration system.
Yeah, but if this is dried meat, why does it even need to be refrigerated?
I don't know, but maybe it's just storing. You got to store it somewhere.
Yeah, and why have a box when you got a stomach?
What exactly?
Makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. So then after this, when they want to use it, the dried bullet's broken down into small pieces or ground into a coarse powder. And then it's often stored when they want to use it. Like this is when they're wanting to use it, when they're not storing it. They'll keep it in like a linen bag to allow it to have contact with a little bit more air. And this just allows it to be preserved for months or even years. And so when they want to use it, they just, of course, it's like rehydrated in a way. They throw it in the soup and then it's kind of this meaty flavor. Yeah, so the long, harsh winters in Mongolia really make it necessary to store sufficient food sources in order to survive. And most of that will be this dried meat that is Buuz.
Yeah. No, it's a smart plan.
Yeah, and they put it in soup and or tea. So if you get a tea that's like got a little bit of a fattiness to it, which we did a few times and we thought it was butter.
It was meat?
It was probably meat.
Meat tea.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a classic vegetarian's destination then, isn't it, really?
It's not a great vegetarian.
This is like when vegans and vegetarians die and go to hell. They basically just get dropped in Mongolia.
Yep, exactly. I think more and more vegetarian options are becoming available in Ulaanbaatar, but if you want to venture outside of the capital, you're not going to have much luck.
Now, you need to bring lots of your own jars of pickles, just like we did.
Just like we did. So yeah, I thought that was interesting because we did go for a long time. It could have been butter in the tea, but it also very much could have been just fatty meat. They do have a dry noodle dish as well, which I actually didn't mind. It was called tsuvian.
I quite like that.
I liked the tsuvian. Of course, it is served with
meat.
Mutton!
Yeah, or whatever meat they've got.
Yeah, exactly. So this is most likely a traditional Chinese dish that was just made popular in Mongolia. It's stir-fried.
It's stir-fried noodles.
Exactly.
With meat. But they're like short noodles, though. Because they actually make them by hand, right?
Exactly. And the thing that makes this dish interesting that I didn't actually realize is that it apparently showcases a well-known, can't be that well-known because I didn't know about it, one-pot cooking technique. So what they do is they make the stew with the mutton and everything. So it could be a stew for anything that they're making because they're always making stews of some point. Right. And then they put the fresh noodles on top of the stew, so the noodles get infused with the meaty stewness,
so like they're steaming them.
Yeah, they
over the stew.
Exactly. Yeah, so they steam them right on top, and that infuses the noodles with the flavor of the broth, and then they take the meat out from the stew, because they go to soften the meat up, and then they mix it all together and fry it all up together and turn it into this noodly, meaty dish. And if they do have a couple of vegetables, they do throw a couple of veggies in there, which is always pleasant.
This was
cabbage.
Like the only dish we got served from a Mongolian restaurant that had vegetables in it.
Yeah. It was like cabbage and carrot.
Cabbage and carrot might be shredded and a little bit thrown in.
Yeah.
Still mostly meat. and noodles, but a little bit of that.
Yeah. So this is actually this is another dish you can find all over and especially in rest stops that you can have. So this was like my go-to dish. Sometimes it's good. I had actually some very good ones and I had some very bad ones as well. So you can be pleased to know that there will be a bottle of ketchup close by, just in case you need to smother the flavor, shall we say.
Yeah, there's always a bottle of ketchup.
Yeah. Or is it ketchup and what did they have like the Maggi noodle flavoring?
Yeah, like
sauce
the
flavoring?
brown soy
sauce?
Maggi sauce.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they had that, so you just put loads of that on and that could fix it.
Yep. So they are some of the main dishes that you will find that involves red.
That's red.
That's red.
Red food because it's got meat in it.
Yes.
Right.
Are you ready for white?
Sure. Dairy time.
Yes. So white. So I'm going to start with one that Tom absolutely loves.
Oh, I think I know what this is going to be.
Now, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but it's orum. Orum, which is milk that's boiled to separate and become cream.
Mm-hmm. It's like thick, clotted cream.
Exactly. So if you've ever been in the West Country of England, you would know what clotted cream is.
Or if you're just English in general, you know what it is.
That's true.
Everyone knows what it is in English.
So rather than being white cream like a lot of us around the world know, it actually takes on a yellow tone.
It's got more fat in it.
It's very, very
it's
fatty.
Like 60% fat or something. It's like a cross between butter and cream. That's why it's sort of yellow.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And the Mongolian version of it is, I was very surprised how close it was to the taste of the English version of clotted cream. Obviously, there's no relation between those dishes at all.
No.
It's just they independently figured out how to make cream and they make it as thick as possible.
And pretty much what they do is they will get the milk and then they will, because of course you've got to churn it. So they pretty much keep the churn close to the doorway. And it's kind of the rule that if you're going out or coming in of the gur, you just churn the milk a bit.
Yeah.
You know, sit there.
It's easy.
Yeah, churn it a bit. And it's like the rule. You know, it was like a rule in my house after dinner that if you got up, you had to take all the dinner plates. So no one wanted to get up first because everyone was too lazy to take all the dinner plates to the kitchen. So this is the kind of thing, like it's like if you get up, you got to churn the milk. So what they do is, I said they take the milk and they boil it and they make it into the orum, clotted cream, and then they take the remaining skim milk and they process this into cheese, which is called biaslag. And then they also take the curds and they dry it, and this is arul, which I'm going to speak about a little bit next. And they also make yogurt, kefir, and a light milk liqueur, or liquor, a light milk liquor.
It's going to be liquor.
Yeah, called shimlim aki. So they take the milk and they make it into a whole bunch of stuff.
They use every part of the milk. They use every part of the meat.
Exactly.
That's what you do.
Now, all of this stuff, if you're making cheese and curds and clotted cream, does need to be stored somewhere. And they don't have refrigeration in these gurs, do they, Tom?
Nope.
Where do they store them, Tom?
Stomach. Inside a stomach. Yeah, we're not joking about this.
No, not at all.
We've been there. We've seen the stomachs under people's beds in the gur.
Yeah.
And they are storing dairy inside the stomach and apparently meat. I didn't realize they stored meat inside because I don't see why dried meat needs to be stored inside anything. But there you go. For some reason, inside a stomach is this perfect sealed space.
Yep.
And
they keep it under the beds because naturally, like being on the ground, well, under the beds is away from everything and out of the way. But if it's on the ground, like we discovered when we were there, even in the summer months, it gets cold at night. Yeah. So having it on the ground just has that cold contact and it just keeps it all chilled.
Yeah.
Very, very chilled. Insane. So if you ever go into a gur, have a little peek under the bed. Who knows what you'll find?
Stomach.
So, as I mentioned, they do make a cheese product called arul, the dry cheese bread. Now, this is also known as kashik, Kashk, kashik.
Maybe.
Yeah. And so what it's usually is like it's drained fermented yogurt or sour milk, and then they let it dry. And it can actually be seen drying in front of gurs all across the country. They'll do it in a variety of forms. They might roll it into balls, or they'll slice it into strips, or they'll just keep it in chunks, or whatever it is. Everybody likes it in many different ways. But you'll see these drying racks outside, or even just they set up like poles and they'll have a string running between the two poles and there'll be like cheese hanging on strings from these poles, drying it out. And I was one of these people, if you've listened to this podcast enough, you'll know that I quite enjoy some cheese, and I thought, ooh, goody, cheese bread, that's got to be delicious, doesn't it? Nope.
Doesn't have to be.
Well, it's because it's fermented. I think
Well, I mean, all cheese is a fermented product.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know what they do to it.
I don't know.
It's like sour and...
They start with the sour milk that's already really weird and off, and then it's already like the milk is fermented before they turn it into cheese. Whereas I feel like most cheese-making products, like they make the cheese... They separate curds and whey and everything. They do that first, and then they ferment it into a cheese product. Yeah. Whereas this, it's like the milk is sort of fermented and then it's turned into cheese. I think. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like from what I read from the process of how they make it.
All I know is that I ate it. It's incredibly hard, incredibly sour.
It'll break your teeth.
Yeah, I don't know how they actually do it. You've got to edge bits off the side of it with your teeth. Yeah, rock hard, very sour. Yeah. A bit like vomit.
It does have a taste
it's
of vomit.
It's like cheese vomit.
But apparently it's a very popular dish in a lot of regions.
Amazingly popular.
In Iranian food, Kurdish food, Turkish, Mongolian, Central Asian, Trans-Caucasian.
Yeah, so the whole region of the Caucasus.
The whole Caucasus.
Apparently.
Yeah, and pretty much the word for this dish in every language is like the local word for dried. So arul means just dried.
Right.
And yeah, it's the same for all of these countries, but it's very, very popular all over. I haven't seen it.
I've never seen it outside Mongolia. Maybe I have not been paying attention.
Maybe they make it better outside
Georgia
of Mongolia.
is the Caucasus. I've never seen it in Georgia.
No, I haven't seen any dried cheese here.
I don't know, but it was horrible.
I hated
apparently
it.
You have to have grown up with it because we spoke to Mongolians who live there and like, yep, it's one of my favorite foods. You're not in Mongolia if you're not eating this every day.
Yeah, they eat it like they eat potato chips.
Yeah, it's a snack. It's a dairy snack. I don't get it. I'm sticking with Parmigiano Reggiano, please. That's a good hard cheese that's amazing.
Yeah, we'll have that. That's fine.
So, yeah. Weird product, but you're going to get served it if you go to any local home, any local ger.
And you have to take a bite and go, thank you.
Thank you for this cheese, if you can take a bite. Otherwise, you
have to use your canines. You really have to get in the back of your mouth and use your jaw.
Well, that's your molars.
Which are your canines?
The little pointy teeth at the front.
No, you got to use your molars. Yeah, get in the back
with the molars. Your canines aren't going to cut it.
Nope, they're not good enough.
Nah. Or you need to get like a dog to bite it for you and then give you a bit. And then you're eating dog mouth cheese. Which doesn't sound good,
I don't think it could taste much worse.
No, that's true. I don't know, maybe the dog mouth will add a certain je ne sais quoi and make it a little bit better. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway.
So there you go.
Are you ready for the creme de la creme of the milk products of white? The creme de la creme of white?
Yes, the creamiest of the milk products. Well, it's not creamy at all.
I
think I know what you're going for here.
Airag.
Airag. Airag.
I
think it might be Airag.
It is Airag, so Airag?
I think it's Airag.
Yeah.
But we don't know for sure.
So it is a fermented dairy product, of course, because we're talking about white. Traditionally made from...
horse milk.
Mare's milk.
Specifically because female horses.
You don't want it from a male horse?
The male version is a
that
bit
is a
different product.
Thing entirely.
They use that for a completely different process.
The Mongolians are very, very proud of this dish. It is the traditional national beverage of Mongolia. The horse is, of course, the most important animal of Mongolia. It's how they get around. Like they've used it even from Genghis Khan times. It was a proud creature that they rode on. So, and they still ride on them today. So the mare's milk has a really, really special status. It's also known as kumis in Russian. Kumys, kumis.
Or kimiths.
Kumis. Yes, this mare milk is, there's a very special way in which you have to milk the horse because obviously they're not big fans of it.
You've got to talk to them a little bit first.
What they do is one person sits down and they actually, you've got to put one arm around their hind leg so that they don't kick with the leg. So what they actually do is they put the foal up there first and the foal starts milking.
So
then they move the foal away, and then one person kind of keeps the foal in touch, it's got to still be touching the mare the whole time. So one person holds the horse up against the mare, and then the other person reaches an arm around to stop it from kicking and milks it while holding the leg in place. It's this really tricky way of milking it. So what they say is that they milk horses between mid-June and early October is the time that they do it. And during one season, a mare produces approximately 1,000 to 1,200 litres of milk.
Wow.
And about half of that they take, and the other half they leave it to their little foal.
Well, that's a lot of milk. And unfortunately, it gets turned into fermented mare's milk.
Yeah, so they ferment it, and it from the fermentation process, it actually contains a small amount of carbon dioxide, and up to 2% of alcohol you will get with this fermented beverage. And if you're wondering about the fact that many Asians, especially Mongolians, are lactose intolerant.
I wasn't, but sure.
No, well, but now you think about it, you're like, that's right. There's a lot of people that are lactose intolerant. Yeah. It's actually, I found out that the fermentation destroys lactose in milk, and it converts it to lactic acid, ethanol, and carbon dioxide. So that's where they get that little bit of alcohol from as well. But it takes all the lactose out of it, and it makes it completely acceptable for lactose intolerant people to drink it, including Mongolians. But if you're lactose intolerant, Iraq for the win.
Yeah, or not. Because it's not.
Apparently, without fermentation, mare's milk contains significantly more lactose than milk from cows or yaks.
Yeah.
So that it's like fully hardcore. Like,
fortunately, I love lactose.
I do love me some lactose. Yeah, but not in this form. Now, would you like to explain your first ever introduction to Iraq? Tell me about the flavor profile.
Well,
what's the nose? What do you getting on the palate?
The nose is best kept away from the Iraq. That's the best part of the nose. That's the best place for the nose. Yeah, so, I mean, we walked into a ger, and as we said earlier in the episode, you are expected to definitely take at least a sip of anything or a bite of anything that you're offered.
Especially this. This is so important to them, yeah.
This is like almost like a sacred drink. So you can put a bit on the floor that you're giving to the earth and the gods, but you do have to drink some, or at least pretend to drink some. Yeah,
if you don't like it, there are actually, in order to not be rude, there are apparently 3 things that you can do. Well, 1, you can just drink up. Suck it up, buttercup, and have a drink.
But then you go to another ger and they give you more.
Exactly.
So you're always going to have to keep suffering.
You can place the bowl to your lips and pretend to drink, but I think they'll know. They'll catch on.
Well, as long as you're passing it around a group, which does happen, then as long as someone drinks it.
Some people do like it. We had one guy in our group that loved it, and he's like, this is the best. And he drank it all for everybody. But yeah, what you can apparently do is you can place your middle finger lightly in the milk and then flick 3 times. You flick once to your left, once to your right, then upwards as an offering to the spirits. And apparently that is totally acceptable in lieu of drinking.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like this weird, sour, nasty milk, basically. And 2% alcohol, you can't really taste that it's alcoholic specifically. You're going to have to drink a lot of that.
No, it just tastes fermented. It tastes fizzy.
Yeah.
A weird fizziness.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's going to give you the poopy poops if you drink a few litres of that.
Oh, yeah.
Because it can't be good for your bowels if you're not used to it. Even if you are used to it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to work out very well. So I try to drink as little as possible and pass it off to other people.
But there were some people that really enjoyed it. So,
One person. One non-Mongolian person. A big group of
6
people.
of us or something?
I think like 9 people.
9.
One foreigner who actually enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And so we let him drink all of it. And I'm sure he had the poopy poops.
He might have had the poopy poops. I don't know.
I'd be pretty convinced he did.
But yeah, so there we go. We've covered most of the red and the white. I know you are completely just gagging to get to Mongolia to eat now after this episode. But I think it's definitely, while it wasn't something that I particularly enjoyed, as we said, I don't like lamb, so it was already not going to go so well for me. But I think there's so many amazing cultural things that you get to experience in eating with a family or watching someone cook or just being in Mongolia is a really special experience if you get to have it.
I mean, how many people do you know who keep a stomach under the bed for refrigeration purposes?
Exactly. And if they do, you should call the police.
Yeah, but in this occasion, don't.
Occasion, it's fine.
Because the police will be about 7 hours away off-road, so they're not going to get there anyway.
But, if someone's trying to do it in Florida, I recommend backing out and calling a grown-up.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, as a cultural experience, going to Mongolia is amazing. As a sightseeing, like, nature experience,
Oh, my
it's
goodness.
incredible.
So beautiful.
As a once-in-a-lifetime crazy life experience, it's completely essential. Go do it. As a foodie destination, it is not the place to choose.
It's not, but it has a lot more going for it. So, if you're willing to forego, amazing cuisine to go on a epic adventure of a lifetime, highly recommend it.
I don't think there's many places around the world where you can go where you can see all the stars and the Milky Way in the sky every night.
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing. Like I know there's some places maybe in Lapland where it's freezing cold most of the time. I know it's freezing cold in Mongolia a lot of the time as well, but
I froze.
just to have to be this far out of the way where you really are 7 hours drive from the nearest settlement
There's just
that has
no
a
light
hospital even
pollution
or anything. Like, yeah, it's just goes out in the middle of nowhere, maybe with a tiny bit of solar power occasionally for some lights, and like that's it.
The saving grace we did find traveling across Mongolia is that there seemed to be in at least every bigger sort of town, there was at least one Turkish restaurant.
Yeah, sometimes. And by biggish town, there's like 2 big towns and the capital, and all the other ones are quite small. So there's like 2 Turkish restaurants.
But we were saved by a couple of Turkish restaurants along the way.
They had carrots.
They did. I
there
don't
you
know
go.
how.
A vegetable. Yeah. No, it's a crazy, crazy, crazy place. I highly recommend you go if you want an out there experience. It's also some of the hardest travel that we ever did. Although
Definitely.
Since we were there, they have been building more roads. So I feel like it is going to be starting to get easier to get to some places, at least connecting between towns and cities. Maybe not for going to the out of the way attractions, but yeah. The food is ridiculous.
It is what it is.
But Mongolians love it because they grew up with it. And
exactly. I love Vegemite. Well, I can't talk.
Yeah.
Most people around the world think I'm disgusting that I like Vegemite, and I'm like, well,
there are people that hate olives. And it's like, I don't get it.
exactly.
But I grew up with it. I love it. So, yeah, the weird foods that we all have in our cultures that everyone else thinks is completely strange. And mare's milk and hard cheese that you can't even bite into that tastes a bit like vomit it's all pretty weird stuff to me, but Mongolians love it. So go give it a try. You have to, because otherwise you'll be kicked out of the ger.
Yep.
And yeah, enjoy. And if you want to read a little bit more and see some photos of some of these foods, we've got that on the blog because we've got a full article on Mongolian food at foodfuntravel.com/Mongolia podcast. So you can go and see what these weird things we're talking about actually look like.
But bear in mind, this was back before we were good photographers.
This is a few years back.
So the photos are a little rough.
There's some rough photos, but you get the idea. And I don't think that many people have actually done this amount of eating around. Like, our mission is always to try and eat as many different dishes whenever we go to a country or destination. And we really did try a lot of food.
We did.
And the menus are not that extensive, so we actually did try most of the traditional food, apart from the stomach butter. I think I did try the stomach butter, and it's like just really sour butter.
It was really, really sour.
I had like a taste because it was on the table. I'm like, yeah, I'm not eating that again.
Yeah, there was a couple of things I left out just because they're quite similar to Chinese dishes. There was like the Buuz sog, which is their deep fried dough balls that they'll have for breakfast, and you have that with jam and cream.
Oh, yeah.
That's very similar to the Chinese breakfast doughs that they have in China as well. So, but that's probably the only thing I left out. And we mentioned the wafers. They love their wafers now, and
yeah, strange imported products that last forever.
Yep. And biscuits. Just, yeah, crazy biscuits.
Yeah, candies that are wrapped in little plastic wrappers so that they keep. Basically stuff that keeps, yeah, because like they might go into the city like once a season or just in the winter, pick up some stuff and then be back out in the steppes for like 9 months.
Yeah.
A lot of people do move back to the capital, to Ulaanbaatar, and like live with heating for a couple of months over the winter when it's really, really, really cold. But then the summer, they just live out the whole time.
Yeah.
Plus, also, there's lots of vodka. We did mention that there was vodka.
There is lots of vodka.
So, yeah, the mare's milk is not what they are subsisting off for alcoholic beverages. They are drinking vodka, and there is beer as well.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, they've made an effort to transport beer around the country. Vegetables, no. Beer, yes. That's it. So there you go. Mongolian food. It's pretty crazy cuisine. And we'll see you again on the next episode of The Dish in a couple of weeks. And of course, don't forget to rate and review, subscribe. if you are not already subscribed so that you get notifications about new episodes. And yeah, if you're going to leave a review, 5 stars is good. Anything less than 5 stars, that's not so good. Because anything less than 5 stars, people, it's competitive now.
Yeah.
And I really hate that. I think I like the fact that Netflix have switched to a just do you recommend or not recommend. And even Facebook has switched to that now for like restaurants and pages and like businesses on there. It's now like rather than stars, they're going recommends. Because like you might really like the podcast, but only want to give it 4 stars. And then that just brings our overall rating down. And then people look at it and they don't even listen to it because they're like, oh, it's only got like 4.2. I'll listen to something that's got 5. I mean, I think right now we've got 5, which is awesome.
Thank you for everyone.
Thank you, everyone who's left us a review. But yeah, like it's really difficult. I don't know, people listen to this, whether you work online or you do anything that's got a business that gets reviews online. But any business owner will tell you it's really, really hard when someone randomly just leaves you 2 stars, no actual review to explain why.
Yeah.
They just give you 2 stars and you're like, could you please explain what we're doing wrong so we can make a difference?
Well, it happened with my Girls Talk Travel podcast. That if anyone hasn't heard of that yet, I am doing a female travel podcast called Girls Talk Travel. But someone left a star rating without leaving a review, and I don't know why. I don't know why they gave me low points. It makes me sad. It makes me cry.
Yeah. And it just
makes my mascara run.
But hopefully Apple will switch and other platforms will switch to the recommends or doesn't recommend sort of thing. Because then, like, it's sort of like, if people are looking at stars, they're going like, star rating's not high enough, I won't bother listening. Where if they're looking at recommends, they're like, 700 people recommend it, 30 people don't. Like, well, obviously a lot of people like it. So if I'm into that sort of topic, I will probably like it. Whereas the star review, people just seem to ignore stuff if the star review's too low. I do. I know I do. Maybe not everyone does, but I think I do.
I do too.
So yeah, the recommends thing sort of works a bit better. Because then you don't have to love it, but you were like, well, I'd recommend it to someone who actually likes that sort of show, which is cool. If you don't like this sort of show, how did you make it this far through the episode?
Why are you listening to us rant on right now?
Stop listening. Like, 5 stars or stop listening. I think that's the best way to go. Or try another episode and see how that goes. All right. Cheers, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode of The Dish. Thanks for listening to The Dish. Don't forget to subscribe and keep this podcast on the air by giving us a 5-star review on your preferred podcast app or channel.
Also, come join our foodie community on Facebook in the Food Worth Travelling For Facebook group. Catch you next time.